Hello and welcome to day 7. Hope I see you, Kay. Hello, Kristen, Kyra, Madalena, Sarah, and Phil. Sharing screens. I like it. Okay, day 7, which means that we are officially completing 33% of the work that we're doing, a third. And that means that it's the end of one stage of the journaling and the beginning of the next. As I've now repeated a couple times, but I'll say it again. This week of expression is coming to an end, and now we are transitioning into the week of experimentation, and that will be happening tomorrow. In regards to what we've done this week, I think we've covered a lot. And there are several levels that we've covered. One has been that which we would consider our selves in this world. We've covered how that is experienced in the body, how it is translating into time, short time, long time, what emotions have been associated to the events that have occurred over time in our records. And now we're entering a place where we are completing that circle. And as we're completing that lap, we are now able to see the beginning from a different perspective. We can see where we started on Monday, on day 1, from a different vantage point. And I think it's important that we take advantage over that new vantage point. And what does that mean? Well, it means to move towards the new position that we're in. And movement is going to be a big part of our conversation leading into week 2. And this week, although we have talked about how it feels in our body physically, we haven't addressed how it's being translated into who we truly are. We haven't really put it into motion just yet, and that's what's going to happen. Something I thought I would share before we dive into the journaling practice of today is a description that Mel, who's not here at this moment, left in the comments on day 6 about our true self and our ego self, and how they are both essential. And I am in 100% agreement with her, and I think this is a conversation that we can take to Coffee Club in the future. But I wanted to share something that I think is important because it translates into where we are today and where we're going, which is that our egos, that which we believe we are, the stories we tell ourselves, the profile, the bio, the resume, the curriculum vitae is our friend. And how does it work? Well, the way that I describe our ego is as the axis on which our moral compass spins. What does this mean? Well, it's that which allows us to create contrast, is that which allows us to become discerning. Without our ability to think and to believe that we are something or someone and that we do something, we are unable to make decisions. And remember, everything that we're doing here is about choices. Choices that will produce a certain outcome, whether it's positive or negative. And those outcomes will have consequences. And those consequences are feedback that can do 2 things. One, it can fill us or deplete us. What we are trying to move towards is a place where we are filling our cup more than we are emptying it, thus trending towards wholeness, trending towards health. And we're specifically doing it around emotional health. So our ego is the axis on which our moral compass spins, and our moral compass is our ability to choose what is right or what is wrong, whether we know, truly know, if that is so. So I thought I would share that before we got into the practices of today. And today I want to go backwards. Today I want to start with the journaling practice and then go into a little bit of a conversation and a talk about where we are heading. So what we're going to do for our journaling this week, or this day, sorry, is we're going to, can you believe it? We've been doing this for 7 days and I'm still confused with day and week, month. It doesn't matter. Everything is happening at once. Today, what we're going to do in our journaling is we're going to start the same way we've always started. We're just going to mark the day at the top, the date. We're going to record it. We're going to draw our little AV model. We're going to mark where we are on that AV model. And then we're going to describe in a few sentences what is coming up for us. Now, here comes the fun part. And this is where day 7 is about retrospect. It's about review, looking back. We are going to draw 7 circles. Let's see if I can draw these circles while holding this way. 7 circles, touching each other just like this. Each one of these circles represents day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. They are all of our different dates that we have been journaling, represented through a little circle, which is our AV model for the day. And I want us to go back to day 1. And I want us to, on each day, mark where we fell within that AV model. Once you have marked where you fell within that AV model, you're simply going to draw the same curve that we've been practicing with our timelines. It's going to look something like that. Some of you, if you're very activated, if you're a person who is constantly aroused, you may fall a little bit higher up here. If you are a little bit more relaxed, calm, you may be under that line, that neutral line. Once you have completed your curve, you're going to do the following. You're going to note that each transition on that curve marks an inflection point. An inflection point is a change. And each one of those inflection points are going to represent a transition that you've gone through, whether you were aware of it or not. And it's going to be based on your daily journaling. That's where the anchor is. And this is something that is happening more of at a macro scale than at a micro scale, because when you're marking your emotional state, it's only when you're journaling. That is changing throughout the day. So keep in mind that what we're doing is we're just getting a macro view, a high level view of our emotional variation. We're going to use these inflection points, these changes in our emotional state, to do our journaling. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by first noting every single inflection point and noting on what days they occurred. You're just going to write about that. On day 1, I noticed on day 1 to 2, I noticed an inflection point that was trending down, or I noticed an inflection point that was trending up. Simply describe in what direction you were moving. After you've described in what direction you were emotionally moving, I want you to ask yourself if something specific occurred, if there was an event that occurred within that 24-hour time frame that was conducive for that inflection, that made you change your mood. If there were any events, specific events, just write about them. Allow yourself to describe them. The next prompt is asking yourself if you were aware of the inflection moment, of the moment of change in your emotional state. And this is a yes or no answer. And if yes or no, just describe how so. Why were you aware of it? Why were you not aware of it? What allowed you to be aware of that change in your emotional state? Or what did not allow you to be aware of that change in emotional state? And the reason you can answer this is because you're looking at it in retrospect. If you cannot recall, remember we've talked about memory, if you cannot recall, just say, I cannot recall at this time what happened or why it happened. And that's okay. Then you can just finish the sentence. And then you're going to finally finish up by addressing what not only this week has taught you, but specifically what those inflection points have taught you. What did you learn from those inflections? What did you learn from those events? And here, I want you to become very specific. And I want you to allow yourself to describe what you learned, not only at a mental level, but also at an emotional and physical level. The reason I share this is because an emotion lasts approximately 90 seconds. It's a 90-second window. From the time that an emotion comes up, you perceive it, and it lingers in a way that you can sense it. After 90 seconds, that emotion turns into a feeling. And the feeling is a mental concept. That mental concept is the one that becomes permanent. And that mental concept translates, projects, gets recorded in the body. So become as colorful as you can in describing these inflection points. Now, why are these inflection points so important? Well, because the inflections are showcasing variability, variation. In ecology, or the study of ecosystems, one of the main indicators of a healthy community of living organisms is variation, variability. When you have a great variety of individuals, organisms working with each other, it's an expression of health. And something that when you study them over time, you see that there are cycles they go through. There are times when there are more of one and less of another, and then they fluctuate back and forth. And it's this dance of fluctuation that is an indicator of health. And not only an indicator of health that comes from diversity, but also something which over time creates a pattern. And a pattern is something that when we look at it, allows us to predict. We can predict when summer is coming. We can predict when the fall is coming. We can predict when the winter is coming because we've lived it. What happens when you predict? Well, you can set yourself up for success. You can be prepared. Preparation. This fluctuation of our emotions, which we have now measured within a week, occurs on a daily basis as well. There is variation that happens throughout the day. And this emotional variability is almost as important as, when we think about physical fitness, heart rate variability. If you're not familiar with what heart rate variability is, heart rate variability is the difference in time that exists between heartbeats. A lot of times we think if we have 60 beats per minute, that's our heart rate, that it happens once a second. But heart rate variability, which is something that we all have, says that it's not even in the time that it takes from one beat to the next. And those who have greater levels of heart rate variability also present greater levels of physical preparedness, physical health. Emotional variability is an expression of health. A lot of us think that we need to be even keel all the time to be healthy. But that's not how the nature of nature works. There's variation. There are waves. It comes and it goes. Yes, there can be storms where our emotions are really high or really low. Yes, they can produce destruction, harm, chaos. But the variation at a healthy level is the one that we can really work with. The ones that have been destructive are the ones that can be the greatest teachers, the greatest opportunities. And how can we learn, remember, aprender, to catch, how can we learn from that variation? Well, this is where our mind comes into play. And what comes with emotional variability is cognitive, mental flexibility. Remember, every emotion creates a feeling, a mental model, and every feeling has a thought associated to it. And a thought, in the way that we tend to experience thoughts, whether they are visual or through language, come in the form of stories. And we are the authors of those stories. Thus, we can rewrite the story or direct the story wherever we want it to go. And that's where we're heading. This week of expression has been an expression that has been internalized. We have gone inward. And in that inward expression, we have expanded. And with that expansion, what's happened is we have sped up, we have accentuated, we have noticed a little bit more what is happening with us from an emotional perspective. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to allow ourselves to bring everything that is inside outside. And we're going to start to experiment. And we're going to move away from feelings. And we're going to start to move towards needs. And these needs can be easily confused with desires, but they're both as important. Just like our true self is important to coexist with our ego self. And day 7, what it really is doing is it's marking, remember we were marking our emotions, it's marking a transition. And in transitions, a few things happen. Number 1, we notice contrast. When everything is the same, we are unaware. But when we change direction, when we feel an inflection, we notice contrast. What does contrast create? It creates aliveness. It wakes you up. It's an impulse. When we are able to notice contrast through discernment, which is our ability to make a judgment without a projection, simply noticing, we can begin to notice similarities. That which is similar from where we were to where we're going. In the transition, we also experience struggle. This is where pain lives. This is where discomfort begins. And one of the things that we're doing here is we are identifying that which is painful, and we are saying, huh, there you are. I actually don't need you. Thus, I'm going to move away from you. I'm going to create motion. And as I move away from that which is causing pain, what I'm going to meet on the other side is discomfort. Move away from pain. When you move away from pain, you will meet discomfort. An example of this is if you have an addiction. Let's say you like to drink or smoke, and you maybe smoke too much. And you decide that that habit is causing you pain, and thus you want to move away from it. You decide to quit. The moment you quit smoking, you immediately enter a state of discomfort. You are craving. You may even have a bodily, a physical reaction because your body is used to having the nicotine. Or if you drink a lot of coffee, you'll get a headache. But the more time you spend in discomfort, you start to notice that that discomfort is not going to kill you. It's not the end. It's simply a transition. And it's here in this transition that having a practice is of the essence. This is kind of like in Buddhism. The first noble truth is that life comes with pain. That pain is a product of our attachment, our connection to that habit, that way of doing things, our way of thinking how things should be. And in order to navigate detaching without disconnecting, one needs to have practice. That's what we're developing here. And through practice, we can live in a state of being that is not attached to our emotions, to the outcomes, but it is connected. And it's connected in a way that causes no harm. And thus the experience is the experience of bliss, peace, health, wholeness. So what is a transition? What is an inflection point? What is noticing our emotional variability? It's noticing each opportunity that exists, with each change. I'm going to share a personal example that I just remembered right now. I didn't even remember that this happened until this moment. In the middle of the night, around 3 a.m., I woke up and I noticed, it's hot. I just felt uncomfortable. And then I noticed, I think I don't feel too good right now. And I remembered, oh man, yesterday we ate pasta. I don't usually eat pasta, and it's sitting in my stomach still in a way that doesn't feel good. And then I started thinking, am I going to get sick? Is this where I now start to suffer? And I noticed that my heart rate started to get elevated. My hands started to tingle. And as that was happening, all of a sudden it came like a tidal wave. All of the stuff that I'm currently working on that has been maybe stressing me or weighing on me, stuff that I've yet to be able to solve, just every single life event was coming to me. And in that moment, I had an opportunity to either succumb to that wave of emotion that was coming with all of these stories, or to shift gears. And the shifting gears was applying that which I have learned, the practices. Was I going to start to journal in that moment? No, I was not. But I did have access to my body. And I could say, okay, enough is enough. You're not here to serve me. So I need to focus on that which does serve me. And right now, I'm going to focus on the breath. So I began to breathe. And I believe within 2 minutes, I was out like a light. Why am I sharing this? Well, because we're all going to experience these inflection points, these moments of emotional distress or emotional low. And the question is, what are we going to do with them? What are we going to do within that 90-second window that we have? Moreover, do we have the tools that are going to allow us to navigate that? Even furthermore, are we going to remember? Is it going to be something that we're going to be able to access either deliberately because we're choosing to, or reflexively because we have already adapted? My goal with this 21-day journaling is to make our reflexes our best friend. And we're doing it by acknowledging the variability that exists within us and how it is like a wave that we can ride. Just like the story I told you a couple of days ago, all the way to the beach. And allow that one ride to be the best ride we've ever had. So that's what we're doing. We're transitioning right now from expression to experimentation, from feeling to needs, and with the feelings to needs, noticing that there is motion, there is movement. And that's what's happening tomorrow. This, my friends, concludes today. I'm not sure if I saw some arms come up, maybe from Sarah. Does this mean we have a question or we're just excited? If anybody has a question, feel free to ask in the chat. If no questions come up right now, know that I will be addressing your comments in the group. Okay, Hope, Kyra, Kristen, Madalena, Phil, Sarah, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me. And let's continue on. We completed 7 days, and I believe we can go all the way to day 21 just by doing what we're doing. And regardless of what the outcome is, I'm sure it will bring some beautiful lessons. That's it for today. I'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. PST. Happy journaling, everybody, and happy Sunday.